Live from Studio 46, this is Good Morning Union Canal.
Good Morning Union Canal, a place where we show respect, show responsibility, show safety, and do our job. Please rise for the salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
And now let's say our Union Canal Creed. Today is a new day to reach my potential. You may be seated. Good morning. Today is Friday, March 18th, 2022. It is day one of the special sketchers. The announcements this morning are given by Michael Kuntz
And Lexi Ortiz. Today's lunch is grilled cheese, tomato soup, goldfish and crackers, and the perfect drink for a day like today. Paradise Punch!
We've been spending most our lives living in an Amish paradise.
Also, there is fresh fruit and vegetable bar, and milk. On the salad bar is a muffin meal.
What a great way to start the cycle of the day.
I know, right?
What a muffin.
Forgot how to play. Hey guys, you're doing a great job. You can waste a little bit more time if you want, okay?
Okay.
You can waste as much time as you want. Okay, good job.
We would like to wish a happy birthday for today to Zachariah Bauman and Reagan Shea. Who both don't go here anymore, but they were still on our birthday list. And to Brianna Cooley and Ashlyn Klein Felter. And Jason and Jeffrey Brew Baker. I wonder if they're related.
I'm skeptical.
Me too. Also, we'd like to wish a happy birthday for over the weekend to Liam Alvarez, William Shea, and Aubrey Williams, and Annie Swinson. We would like to welcome all of our guest teachers who are with us today.
Today's top stories are, after 2 long years, it's finally happened. Kids are hosting Good Morning Union Canal again. Yes! Yes! Oh, yes. So if you want to host a show, all you have to do is be able to read words, be able to speak words, have some amount of charisma, probably be in 4th or 5th grade, and also not be super annoying. If you do all that, maybe you could be the next host of Good Morning Union Canal. Oh, yeah!
That's right, Olivia Policia, you might be our next host.
Oh, I see you over there, Aaron Schuler, and you might be our next host.
And we didn't forget about you, Kaylani Ramos, and we won't forget it when you might be our next host.
Oh, and how could I forget about you, Jalen Fadillo? You could never forget you might be our next host.
In other news, it is Read Across America 3.5 weeks here on Good Morning Union Canal. Stay tuned after today's episode as we have another special guest reader reading our next chapter to us from The World According to Humphrey.
You mean everyone's favorite class with pet, right?
Yes, Michael. Yes, I do.
What fun! In Star field trip news, attention all kids in Star. Today is your field trip day.
Oh, that sounds like fun. And where are they going on their field trip, Michael?
Oh, well, they're going to Spooky Nook.
That sounds like less fun.
Well, no, it's actually a pretty fun place. It's just a weird name.
Oh.
Your field trip leaves at 9:15, which means none of you are probably even watching this anyways, making this entire announcement completely pointless.
Yeah, good point.
Thanks. Hey, wait a minute.
What is it?
Well, you just said I made a good point,
Yeah, you did.
but if the show is completely pointless,
Right? What's your point?
well, if everything on the show is completely pointless, then how did I just make a good point? Who cares?
And now let's head over to Mrs. Durr with the weather. Mrs. Durr?
Hey guys, Mrs. Durr here. The weather forecast for today is sunny, 70 degrees, no rain. It's gonna be beautiful, so hopefully you guys get outside and make it a great one.
Thanks, Mrs. Durr. Well, for Michael Kuntz and all of us here at Good Morning Union Canal, I'm Lexi Ortiz reminding you to have a lucky, and have a great day.
Wow, you're supposed to start some announcements. No, I wasn't.
Yes, you were. You're supposed to do lucky.
Ooh. Dangerous, kids. Don't play with this. Dangerous. Too painful.
What chapter are we on?
I don't know. I don't really care though.
Woo.
Yay! We're done.
Hi boys and girls, this is Mrs. Poet here from the library, and we are reading Chapter 13 today of Humphrey. Chapter 13, Thanks but No Thanks. Since Mrs. Brisbane didn't say a word to me on the drive home, I had time to reflect on the last few months. I had not had a bad experience with any of the families I had visited with. In fact, they had all been gracious and welcoming, except Miranda's dog Clem, but I knew how to handle him. In return, I'd lent them a helping paw here and there. After all, you can learn a lot about yourself by getting to know another species. I was overdue for trouble, and I was likely to get it at Brisbane's House of Horrors. That's how I pictured her home, decorated with skeletons and bats and eerie jack-o'-lanterns all year long. I was shivering at the picture I had in my mind when Mrs. Brisbane actually spoke. "Humphrey, I need you like I need a hole in the head," she complained. "The same to you," I squeaked back rudely, knowing she wouldn't understand. "I don't know what Bert's going to say about you, but whatever it is, it won't be pleasant. Nothing he says is, lately," she continued. "Bert? Who's Bert?" Then I realized it must be her husband, the one who's sick. Well, I was certainly not looking forward to meeting him based on what I just heard. "It won't be much of a Thanksgiving," she said. "We don't have much to be thankful for this year, but I'll try." "Good for you," I squeaked. She almost smiled. "Thanks for the support." The Brisbane house was yellow with white shutters and lots of big trees. Colored leaves covered the front yard. "And on top of everything else, I have to rake?" Mrs. Brisbane said through gritted teeth. Inside, the house was surprisingly cozy. Not a skeleton or a bat in sight. Lots of pretty pictures on the walls and some big yellow flowers in a vase on the table. "Bert, I'm home," Mrs. Brisbane called out. A few seconds later, an old man rolled into the room in a wheelchair. His gray hair was uncombed and stuck out in places it shouldn't. His chin was covered with gray stubble, and he wore very wrinkled, tan pajamas. His expression was so sour, he looked as if he'd just drunk a glass of vinegar. Mrs. Brisbane set my cage on the low coffee table. "We have a guest for the weekend." I could tell she was trying hard to sound cheery. "His name is Humphrey." Mr. Brisbane sneered. "This is unacceptable. For the little pay you get, that school can't force you to spend your weekend babysitting a rat." I bit my tongue to keep from saying something unsqueakably bad. "They're not forcing me," argued Mrs. Brisbane. "It's just that no one else could do it. Let's not make a mountain out of a molehill." Pardon me, but I resent being called a molehill almost as much as being called a rat. Mrs. Brisbane quickly changed the subject. "I thought you were going to get dressed today." "Why should I? I'm not going to see anybody," Bert Brisbane growled, "except you and the rat." Mrs. Brisbane got up and walked out of the room without saying another word. Boy, nobody in room 26 could get away with talking to Mrs. Brisbane like that. I wished I could send her husband to Principal Morales' office right now. Everything was real quiet around the house for a while. Mrs. Brisbane changed her clothes, jeans, and moved my cage onto a card table in the corner of the living room. Then she sat down and read the Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters and the chart my classmates kept on me. "Looks like your friends have been taking good care of you," she said. "Very, very, very good," I squeaked. She fed me and gave me clean water, and then she and Mr. Brisbane ate dinner in some other room while they watched TV. They went to bed early. I'll bet they didn't say 2 words to each other. Even Mrs. Mack talked more at home than they did, and she lived alone. The next morning, Mrs. Brisbane was up very early, and soon the house smelled yummy. I thought maybe I would like this Thanksgiving after all. At least the good smelling and eating part. What I didn't like about Thanksgiving was Mr. Brisbane. While Mrs. Brisbane was clattering pots and clinking pans and making things smell good, he sat in his wheelchair in the living room and frowned. Now, I know a better vocabulary word. Scowled. After a while, he called into the kitchen. "Sue, why don't you stop all that cooking and just sit down for a minute?" Mrs. Brisbane popped her head out the door and said, "It wouldn't be Thanksgiving without turkey and all the trimmings." Then Mr. Brisbane said he didn't have anything to be thankful for. Mrs. Brisbane went back in the kitchen and banged around some pots and pans again. That sour expression on the old man's face was starting to get to me, so I decided to take a little spin on my wheel. I really got that thing going at high speed. I was going so fast, I couldn't even see whether Mr. Brisbane was smiling or frowning. Finally, Mrs. Brisbane came into the room to sit down. "Would you look at that, Sue?" her husband asked. "He does that all the time," she said. "Just spinning his wheels like me, stuck in a cage and going nowhere." Mrs. Brisbane's voice was so grim, I stopped spinning. Phew, I was a little dizzy. "You're wrong, Bert," said Mrs. Brisbane. "Humphrey's not stuck. He goes everywhere. Every weekend, he goes to another house. He eats different foods. He gets out of the cage and runs through mazes. He runs and jumps and climbs. You're the one spinning your wheels and going nowhere. You're stuck in a cage, but it's a cage you made. Well, you could have knocked me over with a feather when I heard Mrs. Brisbane talk that way. Mr. Brisbane was surprised too. Do you think I wanted that car to hit me? Do you think that was my choice? He asked. Of course not, Bert. I'm so grateful you lived through it. That's the point. You're alive, but you sure don't act like it. With that, Mrs. Brisbane got back up and went back into the kitchen. Meanwhile, Mr. Brisbane scowled and frowned and glared at me. Finally, Mrs. Brisbane put the food on the dining room table. I watched them eating their dinner from my vantage point on the table in the living room. They ate, but they didn't say much. The food is delicious, Mr. Brisbane finally said. That was the nicest thing I'd heard him say so far. Thank you, Mrs. Brisbane replied. There was silence for a while. Then Mr. Brisbane said, just think, last year after Thanksgiving dinner, Jason and I threw the football around in the backyard. Now I'm stuck here, and Jason is in Tokyo. Let's call him Bert, his wife suggested. It's too early there, he said. We'll have to call later. Football, Jason, Tokyo. You can learn a lot if you stop spinning and start listening. I listened late that night when they called Jason, who turned out to be their grown-up son who was working in Tokyo, which is far, far, far away, even farther than Brazil, according to the maps in room 26. Boy, there were more Mrs. Brisbanes than I'd ever dreamed. One was mean to me, one was nice to students, one was a wife, another one was a mother, one was a cook, one wore dark pantsuits, the other wore jeans. But which one was the real Mrs. Brisbane? That night, as they headed out of the living room and toward the bedroom, I heard Mrs. Brisbane, the wife, say, I know you think I was being hard on you, Bert, but it really is time for you to think about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. Mr. Brisbane didn't answer. Tip 13. Remember, hamsters are very, very curious. And that is the end of chapter 13. I hope you enjoyed listening to chapter 13 as much as I enjoyed reading it to you, boys and girls. Happy reading!